if God wanted us there, he'll get us there some way, somehow. And that is what ended up happening. And so now we just got to make sure our bags get there. I got to protect my voice. My voice has been going out, but I'm believing for a miracle today. So.
Makers.
I thought I told you time and time again that we won't stop. Back and show by show, I'm tryna triple and double the pot. Book for at least 6 figures, a show or more for him on now. 6 figures. Hooping at 25 rows, all great interior whenever it's cloudy. Remember they bit of my go from chasing health and wealth, not clout. Baddies under my belt, I cook like a chef on Mr. Child.
You good?
All right. Good afternoon. How y'all doing? So as she said, I traveled from afar. I apologize for my tardiness. I had some flight delays, but I'm coming all the way from Arkansas. How many of you have ever heard of the state of Arkansas? Okay. So it's the natural state. But man, so when Kristen reached out to me, I was super excited. And originally, this was supposed to be over Zoom. But I wanted to get in front of you all, be personable. And the week has just been crazy, so I need y'all to bear with me. On Wednesday, I lost my voice. So you probably can tell a little bit. And then this morning, we had a flight delay, which got pushed back, so that's why I'm late. But nevertheless, I'm excited to present in front of you all on today, and we're gonna be talking about finances, and quite honestly, they always save the best for last, so that's why I'm here last. But I need y'all to be a little interactive with me, kind of help me out. Can we say the word free? Free. All right, I know it's at the end, but I need y'all to say it a little bit louder. Can we say the word free? Free. The reason why we bring that up is because I was talking to my friend on yesterday. He has a business, and we were talking, and I do the books for his business. And we were expressing just kind of his goals and his dreams, and he was talking about how much money he wanted to make and things like that. And I was thinking about an icebreaker that I wanted to kind of bring to you all on today. And he said something that was so key to me. And he said, you know what, man, at the end of the day, I got 2 daughters, I got a wife, I just want to be free. So when we talk about finances, understand finances is not the goal, right? The goal is freedom. We celebrated Juneteenth on yesterday, right? Freedom. But then we ask ourselves, what does freedom look like? And so we use money as a tool, not as something that we're just trying to, attain after and idolize it, but we use it as a tool. And so that's what we're going to go through today. And there are actually 6 things that I want to talk about that are free that get us to the path of wealth. How many people want to be wealthy? See, there we go. And so as I was thinking through this, I wanted to come up with a title to kind of go with everything that I'm talking about. And it's called The Dreamer's Guide to Financial Freedom and Generational Wealth. So before we even get into it, you got to know who I am. I remember I was in junior high, and speakers used to come in, and I used to wonder, man, who is this person? Why are they qualified to be standing in front of you on today? So this is not to brag, but this is to give you a glimpse of who I am. So when I was in high school, I had a dream. My very first dream was to play Division I football and to play on ESPN. And so I had an ego problem. I had an attitude problem. And my junior year, I was the top linebacker in the state. And so with that, I ended up getting into a fight my senior year. My senior year, I got into a fight. It cost me 3 scholarships. So I had to end up, yeah, exactly. You say that again. So I had to walk on. Anybody know what walking on means? Yeah, you basically got to try out. But nevertheless, through adversity, through perseverance, I persevered through. I ended up making the team, becoming a starter in year number 2, and I ended up winning 4 conference championships. Anybody ever heard the name Baker Mayfield? All right, Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One cool fact, in 2013, Baker Mayfield won the Burlsworth Trophy, which is awarded to the top walk-on in the nation. I was nominated in that class. Now, if I'm gonna lose to anybody, that's a good person to lose to. But then I moved on. I ended up getting my bachelor's of accounting. One cool fact, In 2015, I was the only African American in my graduating class to get an accounting degree. Moved on, I got my MBA. And then I wanted to kind of figure out what I wanted to do for my life. And a guy approached me and he talked to me about real estate. So I ended up getting into real estate. And in 2 years, I started with maybe $500 in my pocket. I grew my real estate portfolio to a little over $2 million. I had a dream after that where I said I wanted to make $100,000. I did a business deal. I ended up making $100,000. But see, at the time, I didn't have any good financial literacy, and so I blew it all. I blew it all. And a lot of times people will get up in front of you and they'll talk about all their accolades, but nobody ever want to talk about their L's. Nobody ever want to talk about their losses. And that's what I experienced. I experienced a loss. But through that, I grew through it. I ended up publishing my own autobiography book, The Black Accountant. I got a couple copies here today. After that, I ended up starting a few other businesses, and right now I am the youngest director of finance in the state of Arkansas for the largest counseling company. But despite all of that, all the accolades, all the losses, the biggest thing is that I'm a dreamer. Can we say free? Free. Dreams are free. But nobody ever talks to you about how to bring those dreams into reality, how to make your wildest dreams come true. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But probably the very first dream that I ever made true was I remember my mom. My mom had never been to New York, never been. She grew up small town, and I had made just enough money to take her to New York for Mother's Day weekend. And that was a dream of hers. Sometimes the dreams that you make accomplish is not always tied to you. It could be tied to somebody else, but that doesn't mean that that dream can't come true. And so that's what we're going to focus on today as we're working through our dreams. So we got a quote, free your mind, free yourself. Each one of you have grew up in a specific culture, specific background, different routines. And so there may be one way of living, one way of lifestyle that you are used to, and we're going to break that today. If you do the same thing over and over, it's called insanity. When we talk about wealth and we talk about really getting to the next level, you got to separate, because if nobody has been there, I'm not saying you can't listen to them, but you got to be able to think outside the box. And that's where dreaming comes into play. So remember, I said we're going to go through 6 things that are free. 6 things that can help you attain the wealth that you want to attribute. Now, one thing about wealth, many people think that wealth is tied to finances. That's not the case. We're going to get to a definition here in a minute. But the 6 things we're going to go through today is going to be wisdom, it's going to be experience, networking, investing, generosity, and then the last is going to be dreaming. All right, so wealth. Remember, I said wealth is not tied to financial gains, but wealth is mental, physical, spiritual assets passed from one generation to the next. What good does it do if I have all this wealth, but then my mental is not stable? Now, I'm depressed, I can't enjoy it, or if my health is not intact. Now I'm spending all of the money on health bills and different things like that. So that's why we focus more so on the entire compass of it. Can y'all say wisdom with me? Wisdom. Can somebody give me a definition of what they think wisdom means?
The ability to discern right from wrong.
Okay.
Having knowledge on a certain topic.
Okay. We're going to go with him, but I'm going to add something. Oh, I got one more? Good. All right, so we're going to give a definition based on what we're learning today. So wisdom is a high intellectual knowledge attributed to a specific goal or dream. I'm going to say it again. Wisdom is a high intellectual knowledge attributed to a specific goal or dream. The reason why I say that is because you got to have the knowledge specific to what you're trying to accomplish. Let's just say, for example, I was trying to build the biggest skyscraper in New York, but I read 20 books about sea turtles. That relates nothing to what I'm trying to do. So when we're talking about wisdom, we need to focus on exactly what it is that we are trying to attribute to. So today we're talking about finances. So the wisdom that we're going to learn about is money, the flow of money. Now we got 3 categories up there, and we're going to follow them. We got the rich, we got the middle class, and we got the poor. Now, let me just ask just a random question. If I don't have wisdom, does it matter which category I start off in? Can somebody explain to me why? Yeah, if I don't have the wisdom, I can start off in the rich category and end up losing it all. We hear stories about it all the time, where parents leave X amount to their kids, they have no literacy about it, and then they lose it all. So the better thing that we need to do is that we need to understand the flow of money, all right? So if we are trying to attain wealth, we need to understand how wealth is attained. So for the sake of time, we're gonna all start off in the poor category, all right? So the thing about the poor category is, what does it tell us? Well, number one, it tells us that we have no assets, okay? We see an X by it. Assets are things that bring value to us. If I got gold watch, if I got rental properties, stocks, those are gonna be things that are assets. So if I'm in this category, that means I don't have it. Now, that's not a bad thing. It just means that now I know what I don't have and what I need. What I do have, I have a lot of bills. I have rent, I have utilities, I have phone bills. So if you think of it like a scale, I have far more expenses than what I do money coming in, all right? Now, let's just say I end up getting my bachelor's degree or I end up getting my master's, and so now I got a higher paying job. Now I'm contributing to my 401k, so now I have a little bit of investing going. Now the scale starts to even. Now I have a little bit of money coming in, and I have a little bit of expenses, right? Okay, so if we follow the formula in order to get over to the rich, now I need to outbalance and have far more assets. So now I strategize, and I start to bring in more rental properties. I start to pay off debt and different things like that. So as you move through life, understanding how you go from one aspect to the next. You need more assets than you do expenses. So that's understanding the flow of money. Now, the other part about this is that not only do you need to understand the flow of money, we got to track every single dollar that we make. So many people lose hindsight where you ask them, hey, where did the money go? When I made the $100,000, if you would have asked me, where did all that money go? I couldn't tell you. And that's how you end up in poverty, when you are not able to track the money. So how many people in here remember the food pyramid? They showed it to you in elementary, where it showed all the different nutrients that you might have needed to have what they deemed as a healthy body. We do the same when it comes to finances. So this is a pyramid that I made based off my finances, okay? So I'm a man of faith. So at the very bottom, 10% of whatever I make, whatever I bring in, is going to go to tithes, God, things like that. The next 10% is going to go to emergency savings. One fact, there was a survey, about 50% of Americans do not have $500 in their savings account. That's an alarming thing, especially when we're talking about emergencies and different things like that. So I attribute 10% to my emergency and savings. I sat down one day, I figured out how much my bills were, and my bills attribute to about 45% of the money that I bring in. I want to get rid of some debt, my student loans. Then I want to invest into my dreams. Then I want to invest into the stocks. And then at the very top, what do we see? Fun. Fun. How many people in here want to have fun? How many people in here want to make money? They don't go hand in hand. At least not in the sense that we have been taught. One of the things that we have to learn, especially being young, is the ability to sacrifice, right? I got to be able to sacrifice now in order to enjoy the fun later. There's a thing called compounding, where if I invest now, even if it's just $1, it has time to compound on interest. It has time to grow. But if every single dollar that I make, I contribute it to fun, then time will bypass me. Remember, we don't have time. Time passes us by day. So being able to sacrifice fun, now that doesn't mean that you can't have it, but we allocate a smaller percentage because we say we're serious about our bread. We say we want generational wealth. We want financial freedom. So you gotta find a way to be serious about it. But again, this pyramid, it equals 100%. So if I follow it, now I should know where all my money went. I shouldn't be getting lost where Apple then took $20, I didn't know about it, or Netflix didn't raise their price. I should know where all my money went. Now I can start to grow and I can start to make things happen. So we got wisdom. Everybody say experience. Experience. I bet you're wondering, man, how can experiences make me wealthy? Well, back in 2017, I thought I met the love of my life. I thought that she was the world. That turned out to be completely false. Completely false. I probably went through the roughest heartbreak. I did everything but die. Everything but die. But it was through that experience that taught me a lot. And so I remember my cousin, he was a therapist. And he was telling me, he said, man, you got so much built up trauma, so much built up emotions, man, just get a journal and write it down. And I'm like, all right. So I started writing. And then the next thing I know, I started writing about other things that I had been through. And when I looked up, I had a book on my hand. Now, if I go back, there was a moment. If I considered that experience, that was an L. But the thing about L's is that you got two paths. I can either look at that L as a loss, or I can look at that L as a lesson. You pick. If I keep it as a loss, I don't grow and I stay the same. But if I allow it to be a lesson, there's a blessing. Oh, y'all like that. There's a blessing on the other side of that. Because what happened was I leaned into the L and I ended up getting a book on my hand. But the thing about a book is that now I can sell that book. When I sell that book, I put it on Amazon. Now, when you buy it, I make royalties. But it keeps going. 10, 20, 30 years from now, my kids, they'll get the royalties. So now I got wealth based on an experience that I deemed was an L, but I turned it into a lesson, right? So everybody in here is going to go through experiences, but you dictate what that experience will look like. And poverty, when we talk about poverty, a lot of people contribute poverty to the pockets. Poverty is of the mindset. If I can't get out of my emotions, if I can't get out of my head, I cannot turn what is deemed an L into something that could possibly happen. So we have this thing called evolution. Who I was that day is not who I am today. I had to evolve. The question is, will you evolve? Will you allow those experiences to grow you? Will you allow those experiences to make you into you who you are ultimately supposed to be? We always think that everything is supposed to go our way. I thought that I was going to be here at 12 o'clock today. I had messaged Christian. I was going to come early. I was going to set up. But life never really goes the way that we want it to. One thing I struggle with patience. So I'm irritated as hell on the plane. I'm like, I can't get there. My time is messed up. This. But then it was the beauty in understanding and allowing myself to go through the transition. Because in the transition, that's where beauty is made. That's where wealth in the mind is made. And so when you evolve, remember I said you never stay the same. You become a different person. I know y'all see a couple logos on me. Back in 2011, I was in high school. My nickname is CJ. And I was in class and I just drew a simple logo. And I said, you know what? This is going to be my logo. This is going to be my symbol. But I never stayed the same. I started to learn more about myself. I started to become more worthy. Hence, you see the crown, because I deem myself as a king.
But even in that phase, I started to grow even more. And I started to make a couple of my dreams accomplished. And so that's when I tagged the thing, keep dreaming. But I learned to keep evolving and allowing myself to become who I am today. And through evolution, we have this thing called branding. Each one of you are your own brand. Don't worry about Polo. Don't worry about Gucci. Those are people's names anyway. You are your own brand, but you got to learn to evolve. Your brand is a story waiting to be told. And if it's told correctly, it'll pay you forever. The people that we wear, they told their story correctly. And you can do the same. But it's through those experiences where we lean into the lessons, we'd avoid the losses. You're going to take L's. Y'all are young, it's going to be plenty of them. I'm sorry to say. But that's life. But if we take what we learned today and lean into the lessons and say, how can this grow these? How can this make me be a better person? How can this make me help me create that podcast or write another book or start that clothing company or start this business, whatever the case might be. It's through those lessons that allow us to grow. He would say networking. This is probably one of the hardest things for people to do, especially if you're an introvert. So networking, I got to be able to meet people. It's not enough just for me to read. It's not enough for me to just to stay. I got to know you. There's a book called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And in that book, he asks a question that a lot of us ask ourselves, where we ask the question, how can I make $1 million? That is probably the toughest question to ever ask yourself, because now you're stacking yourself up against the odds. But he presents the better question of, who do I know that can help me make $1 million? Everybody in here ever heard of, super teams when we're talking about basketball, get your things like that. You find the best. When I grew my real estate back in 2020, I didn't know nothing about real estate, but I found the best people. I found the best lawyers. I found the best real estate agents, the best mentors, and I compiled a team. And what I lacked, they provided for me. So networking is one of those things that we got to find a way to get out of and be able to meet people, because networking provides different benefits for us. Number one, it allows us to grow our brand. It allows us to grow our business, because now we are in rooms that we may not be in because we networked and now they're talking about us. It allows us to build confidence. And we want to grow a business, we got to have some type of confidence. It creates accessibility. And then the last, it increases our network. Anybody ever heard, your network is your network? Who you know oftentimes dictate the value that's associated with you, right? So some of the easy, simple things when we're talking about networking, number one, you got to know who you are, right? You got to know yourself. When in knowing yourself, that allows you to kind of build up confidence to go approach somebody. Sometimes you may find a similar topic, or you may find something in common that can introduce you into that conversation. That way you're not just shooting from the hip. So networking is going to be another piece that rings as well. Can we say investing? Investing. Can somebody maybe tell me what's the number one thing that you should invest in? It is just yourself. I do consultations, and I sit down with families all the time, and they'll tell me, they'll say, hey, we want to buy some real estate properties, or hey, we want to invest in the stock market. And then I ask them the simple question, why? And then they get hung up and they can't answer that. The why is always the key to whatever it is that you're trying to unlock, because only you know what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes we think that if we have money, it provides what we're trying to do. Not necessarily. You have to understand your dream. You have to understand your reasoning. You have to understand what it is exactly that you're trying to accomplish. Again, I was talking to my friend, and he was talking about he wanted to bring this money in, but ultimately he just wanted freedom. It's a different path. And so understanding our why, investing in ourselves, sitting down, writing down in the journal, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself 5, 10 years from now? Those are going to be some things that we start off with. Once we do that, then we use tools like stock and real estate to get us there. So we got to figure out the finish line first. We got to figure out the dream light first. Then we use stock, real estate, other things to get us there. If you are young like I am, one thing, if you want to play around with stock, we're not going to dive into stocks today, but they have an app called Robinhood. Anybody ever heard of Robinhood? You can play around with that, get books about that. In real estate, get books. But then the last, which is probably the most important, is investing for education. Invest in your education. Again, education and yourself go hand in hand. So many people want to jump to the stocks, jump to the real estate. But that's not how the formula needs to work. You got to invest into your education. Now, the key thing is attributing your education to the goal. Sometimes people say, man, reading is boring. You're reading the wrong thing. Or you haven't figured out what's the end goal. When you figure out the end goal, now you're reading with a purpose. Now you're reading with a goal in mind, so everything is starting to retain. But you got to figure out the end goal in order to make it all make sense. Can we say generosity? Generosity. So this is probably the least talked about, but probably one of the more powerful things that can help you get into the wealth category that you seek. So generosity, remember, it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you anything to be generous, but so many people don't do it. But what does generosity actually do? It strengthens relationships. So now if I'm being generous to this person, if I'm helping this person, if I'm getting outside of myself, serving, now I'm creating strong relationships. It improves health. It increases longevity. Probably one of the more powerful things is that it evokes gratitude. So now I'm happy. Now I'm joyful. I'm blissful. Remember, we said money doesn't have really emotions, right? It's just a tool. But if I learn how to use that tool, now I can bring joy into my life. Now I can bring happiness into my life. I can bring bliss into my life. And that's where we start to talk about wealth. And then the last thing is that it's contagious. If I be generous to this young man, and hopefully he does what he's supposed to do, and he be generous to somebody else, but it starts to create a wildfire. And now you have a room full of bliss, a room full of joy, and the money starts to circulate. The reason why we have poverty and wealth is because people stop, they pocket it all. But if the money percolates, then the money keeps going. And so that's why we want to learn how to be generous. So the generosity tips, like I said, I'm a man of faith, so being able to give 10%, don't expect anything in return. That defeats the purpose of giving. Going back to understanding your why. Why are you giving? Why are you giving to that charity? Why does that mean or have that purpose that you deem it for it? And then the last, become the change that you want to see. We complain so much about our neighborhoods not being intact or, this not happening, this not happening. You be the change. You create that change. And then the last, dreaming. Everybody say dreaming. Everybody say dreaming one more time. Dreams are free. But I'm not talking about the dream that you had at night where a big snake is chasing you or something like that. But I'm talking about the dreams, those deep desires in your heart, where only you know about. But sometimes you may think, man, it's impossible. But I'm here to tell you, no dream is impossible. Me standing here today is a dream that I had 3 years ago. I said that I wanted to do a speaking engagement outside of my state. Here I am. All the dreams that I've ever dreamed of, some have happened in my timeline, some haven't. But the possibility of them happening is always there. Dreams,
They enhance your creativity. If we are made in the image and likeness of the Creator, that means I have creative abilities. So now I'm creative. If you ever think about it, a dream, you got to figure out how to bring it into reality. It provides visualization. Most times people go through life and they seem sleep, they seem bored, and that's because they haven't been able to visualize what's next. But if I have this dream in my head, then I know, okay, this current circumstance that I'm in is not my ending territory because there's another version, there's another place that I got to get to. And so dreaming allows you to do that. Dreaming is overnight therapy for daytime reality. At night, when you're staring up at the wall and you're wondering, man, how can I do this? How can I do that? And then the next day, there's the reality, the possibility, and the chance for you to go out and accomplish it. And then the last thing is talks with God, the one who gave you the thought, the one who gave you the dream, asking him, man, how can I make this happen? That's the power of dreams. And that's how the power of wealth comes into existence. Being able to live your wildest dreams, being able to make it happen, being able to take it from a thought, put it on paper, and watch it come into existence. Some tips, writing it down. That's the first way in bringing it into reality. If it's already in your thought, already in your mind, as soon as you write it down, now it's already in reality. You want to find an accountability partner, give yourself grace. Like I said, some of my dreams, they happen right then. Some, it took maybe 7 years for it to happen. You want to have discipline and discernment. And then the last thing is that you want to keep dreaming. What I mean by keep dreaming is after you accomplish one dream, then you have to keep going. It's almost like building momentum. And you start to build confidence within yourself, and now you start to make all of your dreams happen. So what's the formula? Well, number one, I got to understand the dream. I got to understand what it is that I want, understand what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. Next, I got to formulate the dream. I got to put together the plan. How am I going to make this happen? After I formulate the dream, I got to manifest the dream. Now I start to bring it into reality. I start to make it happen. And then the last, I got to live the dream. This is me living my wildest desires, being able to do exactly what I said that I was going to do. And that's the dream. Now, as I get ready to wrap up, there's a guy that I like to follow, and his name is Ed Milet. And he asked the question, and it's actually tattooed on my arm. But he says, he's the one. And my question to you is, are you the one? We have generational curses that we are trying to break. Some people come from poverty. Some of you will be first college grads in your family. And my question to you as you sit there is, are you the one? If we're talking about financial freedom, we're talking about generational wealth, that means some of you may be the first to ever do that in your family. So asking yourself, am I the one? Now, if you answer that and you say yes, what does that mean? That means all the L's that I go through, I got to turn them all into lessons. I don't get time to turn them into losses. Nobody may feel sorry for me. Being able to get to the top, it requires a special talent. It requires a special mindset. And you got to be able to flip that switch and say, for my family, the name that I carry, I'm going to do it. And if I'm going to do it, I got to go through all these steps. I can have my pity party some days, but I got to do it if I say that I'm going to be the one. I remember it was a lady. I'm not trying to convict nobody. But she said, when you watch Netflix, when you watch Hulu, you're watching somebody else's dream come true. And I was like, dang, it's true. Whatever show you're watching, that was somebody's dream that they brought into reality. And what do? We go binge watch it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not trying to convict nobody, but I'm trying to paint the picture of everything that you see, everything that you do has been created by somebody. So why can't you create yours? You know what I'm saying? Anybody else? We good?
Me like a next tell church 200 up first, don't need no vouch. Put my heart on my work, 100%, ain't giving no slouch. One more start, can't quit, I keep giving hits, they can't keep count.